Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where East meets West to uncover the habits that truly support healthy aging. Today's topic is something most of us touch before we even finish our first cup of coffee: bread, that warm, familiar comfort food. But after 60, is it still the friend we think it is? It might already be harming your health before the day even begins. That is why today we are covering which breads support your strength, joints, and memory, and which quietly work against your health. And to help us unpack this, we're joined by someone that does not need an introduction anymore on this show. A living legend, over 100 years old, still consulting patients, still walking daily, and still sharper than ever, Japan's oldest practicing physician, Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara. Doctor, as always, it's an honor.
Thank you, John, and everyone in the audience. Let's create another amazing episode again. And you're right, bread seems harmless. It's quiet, familiar. But after 60, that first bite in the morning can be a whisper of trouble. Your body is more sensitive now to sugar, to inflammation, to imbalance, and the wrong bread sends all the wrong signals.
So it's not about giving up bread entirely, just choosing more wisely.
Exactly. It's not that bread itself is the villain. Humans have been baking it for thousands of years. But what we call bread today, the kind stacked on grocery shelves, is a different creature. It's fast, fluffy, stripped of fiber, loaded with sugar, and pumped with chemicals your gut doesn't recognize. The result is brain fog, joint pain, and blood sugar swings, all from something we barely think about. But here's the truth: the right bread can still nourish you. So let's talk about the difference. 4 breads to leave behind after 60, and 4 that will love you back.
That's such an eye-opener, because for most people, bread feels like the safest part of the meal. But what I'm hearing is, after 60, it can quietly become one of the most damaging. So let's get specific. What's the first bread you tell seniors to avoid, and why?
The first one is white sandwich bread. It's everywhere. In toast, in sandwiches, in cafeterias and hospital trays. It's marketed as gentle, easy, even comforting. But for seniors, it's one of the most dangerous forms of daily food because it's made from highly refined wheat flour, usually bleached, stripped of fiber, and enriched with synthetic nutrients that don't absorb well in an aging gut. When you eat white bread, your body doesn't get slow, steady fuel. It gets a glucose surge, like eating sugar. That spike triggers insulin, and that insulin roller coaster is the beginning of inflammation in your joints, in your brain, even in your blood vessels.
That's surprising, because most people see enriched or fortified on the label and assume it's a smart choice. Are you saying those added nutrients don't actually make it healthy, especially for seniors?
Indeed. Those added nutrients are often synthetic, poorly absorbed, and not a substitute for the natural minerals and fibers that were removed during processing. It's a bit like removing a tree's roots and gluing on plastic leaves. It looks okay, but it can't nourish anything. I remember a patient, Mr. Nakagawa, age 72. He was healthy by all appearances, but kept complaining of afternoon crashes and foggy memory. He had no major medical conditions, took walks daily, but he always started his day with 2 slices of white toast. When we removed just that one item from his breakfast and replaced it with something slower digesting, his energy stabilized within days. By the second week, he said his thoughts were clearer. His knees stopped aching by noon.
That kind of improvement, just from changing the bread at breakfast, really makes you rethink how powerful food is. Do you see this kind of transformation often, just from small changes like removing white bread?
Yes, and it's not rare. A 2017 longitudinal study published in the Journal of Nutrition and Aging tracked over 2,000 seniors for 5 years. Those who regularly consumed refined grains like white bread had significantly faster rates of cognitive decline, higher inflammatory markers, and greater risk of developing pre-diabetic conditions. So white bread may feel innocent, but over time, especially after 60, it becomes a silent saboteur. My advice: treat it like sugar, an occasional treat, not a daily habit.
That really shifts the way we think about something as basic as toast. And I know that for a lot of people listening, they've already moved on from white bread, thinking they've made a better choice. One of the most common swaps I see, especially in older adults trying to be mindful, is multigrain bread. It looks rustic, has seeds on top. The label says whole or natural. But is that actually a safer option, or is it another trap?
It's one of the most deceptive options, actually. Multigrain bread often gives the illusion of health, but the reality depends entirely on how it's made. In many cases, what people are buying is white bread in disguise. The grains might be sprinkled on top or blended in small amounts, but the base is still refined wheat flour. That means the same rapid digestion, the same blood sugar spike, and the same inflammatory cascade, just wearing a seed-covered jacket.
That's shocking, because most people really do see that word multigrain and think they're making a smart, heart-friendly choice.
And here's the trick. Words like multigrain or made with whole wheat are not guarantees. If the first ingredient isn't 100% whole grain, you're likely being misled. Many of these loaves use caramel coloring to appear darker or add molasses and sweeteners to enhance flavor and shelf life. So even if it tastes hearty, it may be harming you slowly through increased glycation, joint stiffness, and insulin resistance. So even the darker color can be just an illusion. Precisely. I've had patients tell me they switched to multigrain thinking they were doing everything right, but their morning blood sugar was still climbing, their ankles were swelling, and their brain felt sluggish by midday. When we replaced that bread with a truly whole, sprouted option, the difference was measurable, not just in lab results, but in how they felt walking up the stairs or remembering names.
That's incredible, and honestly, a little frustrating, because so many of these choices are being made in good faith, just with the wrong information.
Yes, and there's one more concern: poorly prepared grains. If the grains in your bread aren't soaked or sprouted, they can irritate digestion and worsen bloating, especially in older adults with slower gut motility. This kind of internal stress doesn't just affect your stomach. It affects mood, memory, and even sleep.
That's such a good point, because we talk so much about carbs and sugar, but we rarely consider how the grains were treated. And it's not just what's in the bread, it's how your body handles it. Now, there's another trend I see growing fast, especially among people trying to eat clean, gluten-free bread. It's almost become a badge of health, but I know you've warned about this one too. What's the concern? Is gluten-free always better?
Not at all. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions in modern health. Just because something is gluten-free doesn't mean it's good for you, especially after 60. In fact, many gluten-free breads are even worse than the ones they're meant to replace. Here's why. Most commercial gluten-free breads are made with high glycemic starches. Things like tapioca starch, cornstarch, rice flour, or potato starch. These ingredients are incredibly refined. They digest quickly, spike your blood sugar even faster than white bread, and offer little to no fiber or nutritional value.
That surprises me, because gluten-free is marketed almost like a medicine now. People think they're doing their gut a favor.
Yes, and that's where it gets dangerous. Unless you have celiac disease or diagnosed gluten sensitivity, switching to gluten-free bread for no reason may actually backfire. You're trading a problematic protein, gluten, for a cocktail of starches and binders your body may struggle to process. And these binders, like xanthan gum, guar gum, or added emulsifiers, can irritate the gut lining, especially in older adults with already sensitive digestion. I've seen patients switch to gluten-free bread and start having more bloating, fatigue, and even joint pain. Their intentions were good, but the food was still working against them. A 2021 study in Nutrients showed that seniors who ate processed gluten-free products regularly had higher rates of insulin resistance and inflammatory markers compared to those eating whole grains.
So even if it says gluten-free, we still have to read the label?
Absolutely. The ingredient list is your truth serum. If it starts with starches or contains more than 5 or 6 ingredients, especially ones you can't pronounce, it's not doing your body any favors. Now, there are healthy gluten-free options, breads made with whole grain millet, brown rice or buckwheat, especially when sprouted or fermented, can be very supportive. But they're rare. You usually have to look in specialty stores or bake them yourself.
That's a serious reality check. A lot of people grab gluten-free thinking they're doing the right thing, but it sounds like most of those breads are just processed carbs in disguise. Now let's talk about the last one on your list, sweet breads. Things like banana bread, raisin toast, cinnamon swirl. They're everywhere at breakfast. But after 60, what's the real cost of that comfort?
Sweetbreads are one of the most comforting and most harmful choices for older adults. They're soft, familiar, and often come with a sense of nostalgia. But beneath that sweetness is a metabolic trap, especially after 60. Most are packed with added sugars, refined flours, seed oils, and artificial preservatives. That combination spikes blood sugar, crashes energy, and over time leads to inflammation, weight gain, and even poor sleep.
That's the part we don't think about, how breakfast sets the tone for the whole day. If it starts with sugar, your body's playing catch-up.
Exactly. Your first meal is a signal, and if that signal is starch and sugar, your metabolism spends the entire day struggling to find balance. A 2020 Harvard study found that older adults who started their day with refined carbs had a 32% higher risk of developing metabolic syndrome within 5 years.
That really puts it into perspective, because we think of breakfast as a gentle start, but for a lot of people, it's the start of a blood sugar storm. So let's flip the page. Most people have been waiting for this the whole episode. Let's talk about the breads that actually support the body, the ones you do recommend after 60. What's the first one on your good list?
The first one I recommend is sprouted grain bread. Like Ezekiel bread, it's made from whole grains that have been soaked and sprouted, which unlocks nutrients and makes them easier to digest. For people over 60, that matters. Sprouted bread raises blood sugar more slowly, provides more fiber, and reduces inflammation compared to regular whole wheat. It supports digestion, brain clarity, and joint comfort. You'll usually find it in the freezer section. And that's actually a good sign. No preservatives, no gimmicks, just real living food.
That's such a great point. Real food spoils, and that's not a flaw, that's a sign it's alive. And I love that this isn't about eliminating bread entirely. It's about finding the ones that actually work with your body, not against it. So let's go to the next one on your list. A personal favorite of mine, sourdough. What makes it so unique, especially for seniors?
Sourdough is one of the most senior-friendly breads, if it's made the traditional way. The key is fermentation. True sourdough uses a natural starter, not commercial yeast. That fermentation breaks down some of the gluten, reduces phytic acid, and produces beneficial compounds that aid digestion and blood sugar control. A 2022 study published in Frontiers in Nutrition found that older adults who consumed traditionally fermented sourdough had significantly better post-meal glucose control and lower inflammatory markers than those who ate non-fermented bread. The fermentation process really does change how your body reacts. The result is a bread that digests more slowly, causes less inflammation, and actually helps your body absorb minerals like magnesium and zinc, both essential for brain health and joint function. And there's another benefit: taste satisfaction. Real sourdough has depth, complexity, and texture. When food is deeply satisfying, you need less of it. You eat more mindfully, and that alone supports better metabolism.
That's fascinating, especially the part about mineral absorption. Most people don't connect bread with things like brain function or joint strength, but clearly, when it's made right, it can support both. And it's encouraging to hear that something as simple as fermentation can make such a big difference in how our body responds. So now we have 2 more breads to discuss, and then we really have to stop this episode because the topic makes me hungry. What's the next kind of bread that earns a spot on your recommended list?
The next one is rye bread, specifically dense, whole grain rye, the kind you often see in traditional European diets. It's not as common in the West, but it should be, especially for people over 60. Rye contains a special type of fiber called arabinoxylan. This fiber slows down digestion, helps regulate blood sugar, and feeds the good bacteria in your gut. That's critical as we age because the diversity of the microbiome tends to decline, and that impacts everything from immunity to mood. A Scandinavian study published in 2021 in the Journal of Internal Medicine found that older adults who ate rye regularly had improved insulin sensitivity and lower inflammatory markers compared to those who ate wheat-based breads. It's not just slower carbs, it's smarter carbs. Just be careful, not all rye is created equal. The soft, sweet rye you find in delis is often loaded with sugar and made with white flour. Look for dark, dense, seeded rye, ideally with few ingredients, and whole rye flour listed first.
So not the fluffy rye you find in sandwich shops. You're talking about the heavier, seeded kind.
IM rye contains a special type of fiber called arabinoxylan. This fiber slows down digestion, helps regulate blood sugar, and feeds the good bacteria in your gut. That's critical as we age because the diversity of the microbiome tends to decline. And that impacts everything from immunity to mood. A Scandinavian study published in 2021 in the Journal of Internal Medicine found that older adults who ate rye regularly had improved insulin sensitivity and lower inflammatory markers compared to those who ate wheat-based breads. It's not just slower carbs, it's smarter carbs. Just be careful. Not all rye is created equal. The soft, sweet rye you find in delis is often loaded with sugar and made with white flour. Look for dark, dense seeded rye, ideally with few ingredients and whole rye flour listed first.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that distinction is so important because most people think they're eating rye when really it's just white bread in a darker outfit. So let's round this out. You've given us sprouted grain, traditional sourdough, and now true rye. What's the final bread that you believe actually supports health after 60? Is this one extra special since you kept this for the end?
Not more special, just often forgotten. The final one is rice bread. Simple, gentle, and deeply nourishing, especially when made from whole grain brown or black rice. In Japan, we've used rice in many forms for centuries, not just as a side dish, but as a vehicle for balanced energy. Rice bread is naturally gluten-free, but unlike most commercial gluten-free products, it's made from a single whole grain. That makes it easier to digest, especially for seniors. It also contains resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate that helps regulate blood sugar and supports the gut microbiome. What I love about rice bread is its steadiness. It doesn't spike your insulin, it doesn't leave you bloated, and it pairs beautifully with simple foods. Miso soup, steamed vegetables, a bit of tofu or fish. The kind of meal keeps your body calm, focused, and light. It's not flashy, but after 60, what you want from food isn't flash. It's trust, and rice bread delivers that quietly.
That's such a powerful way to put it. After 60, food shouldn't excite your system. It should support it. Gentle, trustworthy, steady. Doctor, thank you again for walking us through this. It's not about cutting out bread entirely. It's about choosing the ones that age with you, not against you. Anything you want to say to end this episode?
After 60, every bite is either helping your future or borrowing from it. Choose the breads that give back.
That is well said. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you want to support us, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel or a small donations via the link in our bio.